Let me take you back to 1996. I was working in a cheese factory and notified the factory was closing. My husband is disabled, so I needed to find a job to help support my family. There was an ad in the local paper about a nursing home that was running a certified nursing assistant class. I thought, I can do that. I used to babysit and I do know how to change diapers. The first week was classroom instruction and the second was instruction and skills training. After 2 weeks, we took the CNA test and I passed. The nursing home offered me a 72-hour position on second shift. I was supposed to receive 1 week of orientation, but that didn't happen. The first night I worked, one of the other workers called in sick, and I ended up working alone. I was responsible for 10 residents, toileting them, repositioning them, getting them up from a nap, monitoring the wanderers, getting them to the dining room, assisting the residents that needed help eating, and after supper, I needed to make sure everyone got back to their room, toileted, repositioned, washed up for bed or showered, and then assist them to bed. Then there was charting to do and rounds. That first shift finally ended. And on my drive home that night, I asked myself, what did I get myself into? The training I received the previous 2 weeks did not prepare me the way it should have. I went back for the next shift and was lucky enough to be on the wing with an experienced CNA. She took me under her wing and became my mentor. Thanks to her, I fell in love with the job and stayed on second shift for 5 years. A cook's position opened, and I'm not sure why, but it paid more than doing the personal care, so I signed for that job. I figured I would still get to see the residents in the dining room, and I helped on the floor when they needed me, which happened with regularity. After a year in the kitchen, I took an office position. It was Monday through Friday, no weekends, and more money. And I still got to see the residents during the day. Well, it wasn't long before I was doing all 3 jobs. Eventually, this became too much, and I made the difficult decision to leave the nursing home after 7 years of dedication to the residents. This was one of the most difficult decisions I have ever had to make. The reason leaving was so difficult was because of the relationships I had built with the residents. The elders I cared for gave me more than I could ever give them. Sure, I took care of their basic needs, but they gave me an ageless wisdom. When I was able to take the time to listen, they gave me history lessons because they lived it, and life lessons. One gentleman was in World War II, and he taught me the importance of freedom and not to take it for granted. The same fellow taught me how to count to 10 in German. Another elderly gentleman I cared for was very special to me. We hit it off from the time of his admission. The day after he passed away, his son called and asked me to be a pallbearer for his father. Of course I did, and was honored that I had touched his life in a special way. I remember the first time a resident died while I was working. I was scared and not sure what to do. But remember that mentor I mentioned earlier? She taught me how to care for a dead person. She also told me washing up a dead person and getting them ready to go to the funeral home was the last good thing I could do for that person. I knew I wanted to stay in the direct care profession because I could make a difference. So I applied for a job with a home health agency. It just so happened that they had a client I could work with for 40 hours a week, which I now know is a rarity in the home care field. I was told I would be responsible for taking care of a quadriplegic man. Okay, I thought, I can do that. I went in to train with another caregiver. Training was pretty good with this agency. The first day I thought, I have to do what? Learning to catheterize him, which is inserting a tube into his bladder through his penis, was not too bad. But the bowel program consisted of manually removing the stool from his rectum while he was seated in a shower chair. At least I was no longer responsible for 10 to 15 residents, and I could give my undivided attention to one person. A typical day with this client consisted of arriving at 8 a.m., changing his Depends, dressing him, and using a Hoyer lift to transfer him to his wheelchair. Then I'd prepare and feed him breakfast and help him take his medication, floss and brush his teeth, and do range of motion exercises on his upper extremities. I'd read to him from the Bible and a daily devotional. At 10 a.m., I transferred him back to bed, catheterized him, performed range of motion on his lower extremities, and then transferred him to the shower chair. Once in the bathroom, I did a skin check and manually removed the stool from his rectum. Then I gave him a shower, dressed his upper half, and transferred him back to bed. While he rested, I cleaned the bathroom and prepared lunch. At noon, I dressed his lower half and transferred him to the wheelchair, fed him lunch, performed range of motion on his upper extremities again. Then I would shave him and clean his razor, read from the daily paper about current events, give him a snack, and assist him taking his medication. Transfer him back to bed, catheterize him, position him on his side, and hook up his sip and puff lifeline that allowed him to call for help by blowing into a straw. Clean the catheter, do the dishes, making sure I was done by 2 p.m. I would go home for 3 hours and return at 5:30 to start the routine over again, minus the shower, shaving, and bowel program, and I was done by 8 p.m. After a year, my client switched to cooperative care, a worker-owned home care agency. The co-op asked me if I would move with the client, and I said sure. I wanted to stay with the client and had built a good relationship with him. But working at cooperative care has been a whole new experience. When I was at the nursing home, I never questioned much of anything. Now, if I have a suggestion about how I think things could work better,